Starting your own practice is hard for many chiropractors. It's riddled with both struggles and successes. But here at the Chiropractic Philanthropist, we make it easy by having chiropreneurs and entrepreneurs share their struggles and lessons learned in life and business so that you don't have to make the same mistakes. And now here's your host, Dr. Ed Osborne.
All right. Hey, so let's head right into it, Doc. So, this isn't the first time that you've actually been on TCP podcast, but, I reached out to you for a reason because I know you have an incredible story. Plus, it's been quite some time since we've had you on the podcast, and I know a lot in your life, but also your business has changed. So let's start with this. So for the people who don't know who you are, so RJ, go ahead and actually introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you as a doc, as a father, as a man, as a chiropractor, as a business leader. And then what we'll do is I'm going to start firing some questions your way.
Sounds good. Yeah, thanks for having me back. It's always fun. Definitely a different person than when I was the first time I met you. Who I am. My name's RJ. I'm married to Michelle. She's a chiropractor. Met at Palmer. We graduated in 2006 from Davenport. Right before I graduated, I got diagnosed with cirrhosis and diabetes. Had no idea that chiropractic could help. I went to chiropractic school to play rugby. I was wanting to go back to Canada, actually, where you're from, Ed, and open up a thing called the House of Pain, was my ideal clinic until I got struck down with illness. I got turned on to principal chiropractic care, instilled it in my life, got results. So I've been in practice now 12 years. I focus upper cervical atlas. I have two children, Jada, who's going to turn 6 in May, and my son Justice just turned 4 in March. We married, I think, 11 years. So that's that. I'm a pretty big straight chiropractor. I love philosophy. I love helping people get their lives back and reach potential and purpose. And I think that's enough about who I am. Do you want me to go more?
No, I think you're good, man. I'm just posting on Facebook as we're having our conversation. I'm always promoting. Okay, so
BJ would be proud, by the way. BJ would be proud of that.
I learned from the best. So
Right.
let me ask you this. Looking back to where we did our interview before, and it was interesting because we were actually I remember sitting outside of a Starbucks in Edmonton, Alberta, for that podcast as well. But what has transpired? What has changed from that? Was probably like a year and a half ago.
I think 3.
Was it 3 years? Oh my gosh. 2 years
Yeah.
At least. Okay. So what has transpired in your life? What has changed for you most significantly? Like when I asked that question, like pull out 1 or 2 things that has changed most significantly for you over that 2-year period as a chiropractor and as a man, as an entrepreneur.
I would say that when you asked that question, the first thing that popped in my head was my heart. My heart has changed in a big way, and it's constantly changing. And what I mean by that is, I have, as a chiropractor, I'm sure you'd agree with me that when we get out of school, you have this desire to help everyone. And that was my desire and plan. Like people said, what's your niche? And I said, anyone with a spine. And I've seen shifts in my own life by surrounding myself with really powerful men and doing certain things outside in a thing called the Crucible Project and some other things that you and I are in. And I've really seen a shift in my heart where it's like, now I'm clear. So I have a clarity. So my heart's changed and my clarity has changed. And now this clarity is becoming super clear where I have a target like a sniper where I know exactly what I want to hit. So I'm actually broadening my office and my scope and what I want to do into a tighter circle because I feel like for the first time in my life, the clarity has brought me a bigger purpose. And it's just been freeing to have that. Like the amount of simplicity in my life, it's clear. I have energy about it. I have purpose waking up. I have extreme amounts of power when I talk about it. And I have a drive to go and actually hit it. And so I think, I was on the roller coaster waves of following other people's dreams because I saw them being successful. And, at the beginning, I get that. Like, I get students, if you're listening to this, that you want to find successful docs, you want to mentor. but then you need to switch and find out what's right for you. You need to find your talent set and your gifts and explore that to make you successful. And that was from my wife. Like, my wife pointed that out to me, and I have to give her credit because she is a plethora of knowledge. And she was actually saying that. She's like, you know, you don't know your gifts, but you're chasing everyone else's, yet your happiness lies within. And I was like, okay, that's the inside, what I've been teaching people, but I don't apply that to myself. So I would say that's the biggest change I've had in the last, I'm not even say 2 years. I'm going to say probably like 7 months.
And how many years have you been in practice, RJ?
12.
So just for everyone listening, 12 years. And then still, you know, the way that we envision or we think that we'll be in practice, or, you know, this is practice, business, it's the same thing to me.
Yeah.
Like, life throws things our way. We have, you know, the path splits, or whatever the cliche is you want to use. I mean, things change. So let me ask you this. I remember very clearly having that conversation with you years ago, and you were like, Ed, you were on fire. You're like, Ed, my mission is to see, I think the number was like 2,000 patients a week. And I was like,
it was
3,000
3,300 a day.
Oh my God. I was like, okay, so how does this even happen? But is that changed as well?
You know, I'm wrestling through that right now. You know, it's a big vision of mine, but I don't know if it was the fun thing to say. Like, I look at the picture of BJ's clinic from the 1900s where there's 3,000 people in the hot seats. It was just packed, man. And I know what he was doing, and I don't know, like, it could change. And that's what I'm wrestling with right now. It's, as I've sort of simplified, I'm like, is that what I really want? And so right now I'm working a lot on meditation and prayer around that to say, you know, is that really what you want? If it is, then show me. If not, then show me the right way. You know, I still think that chiropractic has the ability to reach that many people.
Yeah.
And it was interesting is that my wife and I and another chiro were talking yesterday, and we were talking about all the fights on Facebook that chiropractors have about our profession and who's right and who's wrong. And the answer comes down to is just see more people. Right? Just reach more people, and these silly debates and these arguments about what's better and what's right will go away, because we're gonna. It's like you teach. We have to have market penetration, and if we just see more people, we're gonna influence that market.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's interesting too, because, you know, like, again, going back to that number of 3,000, it's like if I think about someone like Karen, my wife, chiropractor, right? But now she's kind of moved out of chiropractic, and she's more in the online space and coaching, mentoring women, high level. Her podcast, when she does a podcast, you know, this one will probably be listened to, you know, 2,000 times, but her podcast is like 5, sometimes 8,000 a day. It's just, you know, the power, right, that we have as chiropractors, as professionals, and we all have so much value inside of us. And what we're doing right now, I mean, you're sitting in your car, getting ready to go in and adjust and save lives. And I'm sitting here in my office, like in, you know, Victoria, BC, but we have the ability to affect and impact so many people globally. Yet, I'm going to ask you this. One of the challenges is, I think a lot of chiropractors put an ROI on it. They go, well, how is the ROI going to turn, like, how am I going to turn a dollar and cent out of that? Do you find that we get distracted by ROI?
All the time. It's what everyone asks. Like, you don't realize, like, I was just listening to a book, and a guy said he did something and he was a pastor, and he said he did something in January, and he got $1 million check in September or November. So he said he totally forgot that what he did 10 months prior landed that, and it kept going. And like, that's the problem that we always, what's ROI? What's ROI? And it doesn't matter. If you impact the lives of one person, isn't that worth it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and we lose sight of that because, again, you know, especially me as a man, I can't speak for the females that are listening, but as men on this podcast, the number one thing we want to do is compare ourselves with other men. And so that's what I did for 12 years. And I chased everyone else's dreams because I wanted to be that man that they thought that I thought I needed to be to gain their success and have their accolades and their praise. And all it did was ruin me. It just, it just destroyed me to the core. And that's just living out of integrity. Like you're not being in integrity with yourself when you're chasing someone else's dream.
Agreed. Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. And I call it emotional ROI now. It's almost like I feel good. Like I feel good about this conversation. I feel there's going to be chiropractors who are listening to this and they're going to hear it and they're going to connect with this. So I call that emotional ROI. And
Yeah,
emotion, it never stops paying, by the way. Like, I mean, regardless of bank account, you're always going to feel like people are going to reach out and they're going to tell you that you helped them. So I always see that too. I'm going to ask you like for some practical stuff here, Doc, while I got you on this call. So, if there's a doc right now that's listening and they're really struggling and they're really connecting with what you're saying about not just about value, but also living their own dreams, what is the first piece of advice that you would give them? Like, what should they go and do first?
Oh man, there's so many I could give them. I think hopping on board your Man of Iron thing, becoming a warrior. I would say finding their purpose. Like there's that the book, The Purpose. Which one I'm talking about. Garrett mentions it. There's a purpose book, Life on Purpose, or the Purpose Code.
I study Russell Brunson and Garrett J. White now, and that's it. So I'm not really sure.
No, Garrett mentioned it on one of our calls. He said, get this purpose book. And so I did it. So there's a book to find your purpose. I would sit down and really look at your life and say, what are you doing that fires you up? Like what brings you energy? What brings you joy? Start looking at those areas, and I would start exploring those areas deeper. And then I would really sit down and find your niche, man. Like hammer it out. Get a picture of something you like. Find the ideal person you want to help, and then build a practice around that. I think, one of your trainings I did, it was talking about building your avatar. And it was funny because I met with a marketing gal. I had all the stuff to sit down and do it. And I built it, again, based on something I thought would be a really good business decision and a really good thing. And I get home, I'm so excited. I tell my wife, and she's just like, no, that is not who you are. That is not what you're into. And I'm like, but it would do that. And she's like, no, you'd be miserable talking about that stuff. And I'm like, I felt crushed, but I needed to get crushed to find that new possibility and open me up to find this new target I have. And so I went back to the drawing board, and it took me a few days. That's the problem is I think as chiropractors, business owners, and helpers, we want to have a solution in the next 5 minutes. But I think the reality is it could take 5 days, 5 months, or 5 years, and you'll get that. So there goes that ROI again. But the emotional piece behind what she taught me is a life lesson that keeps driving me forward.
Agreed.
I would say they have to find their purpose and live your purpose, not a practice management company's purpose, not gurus on the internet's purpose, not anyone else's purpose. And that's the cool thing I like about you, Ed, is you went all in. You're like, I'm done. I'm going marketing. That's you. And I know some people have a problem with that. I'm like, why do you guys care? That's what he wants to do. Go out and serve your community. He's serving the community in a different way.
Yeah.
And who cares? But we're so, and here's this number 2 is be into your own problems. Like be more concerned with yourself than you are with whatever other chiropractors doing. And so I remember 10 years ago, we moved into our office space, and there's a chiropractor 2 doors down. And people are like, what are you going to do? I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't see the guy. I don't talk to the guy. We both have practices that are thriving. There's no competition. It's awesome. Like, who cares what he does?
Yeah.
And I think once you get there, you get freed too to start compete with yourselves, guys. Like docs, listen to this. You got to compete with yourself. Don't worry about your friends. Don't worry about your classmates. Don't worry about what's posted on Facebook. Just be and do you. And that's been a big breakthrough for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, we all are marketers, aren't we? Really?
Oh,
I just get paid for it.
Hey, and I wish I did too. And I had this story going through my head that I wasn't a good marketer, yet I've marketed my practice for 10 years.
Yeah.
Then I started to pay for people to market it. And what did I see happen? Huge drop, man. because I wasn't out there. I'm like, well, I can stay in now. I've got all this. And I realized, no, I am the lifeline. I am the heartbeat. I am the pulse. And the more marketing I do, the better my clinic thrives.
Yep.
And like you said the other day on one of your videos, even if it's just me doing a 10-second, 30-second, 20-second Facebook Live and a post and a little audio, that's all we need to be doing. And I'm like, man, I can do that. I have time set aside to do that. Why don't I do it? And then the insecurity set in. So it's just, again, purpose, be yourself, and just post stuff.
Yeah.
And just go for it.
Yeah. 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 Literally, like I'll take, like I schedule this stuff, but I mean, I'm going to make this relevant to docs and not to me and my marketing online. But, you know, a doc could basically take one half Saturday on a weekend and probably fire off, I don't know, 50, you know, short 3-minute videos that, you know, their team can upload for them as content for the next few weeks. Strip out the audio. So now you can just use it as an audio if you want to drop that audio somewhere, even do a podcast, and strip out the tech, like this transcript from it, post that on social media. I mean, there's lots of ways that we can do it. It's just whether or not docs have really just the willingness to take a half Saturday once a month and actually do it. I mean, it's really just about consistency, being seen and getting attention all the time online. So I'm gonna wrap up or start to wrap up our call, and I'm gonna wrap this up with a couple practical things. So, number one, what is the book you were just listening to?
It was if I hit. Are you not video recording this, right? So I can. Well,
no, I'm not. I can hear you though, but yeah, clearly I can hear you, but can't see it.
Let me see this. I want to get you the name. Let me get up my Audible. I was listening to Fasting. Open the Door to Deeper, More Intimate, More Powerful Relationship with God by Jensen Franklin.
Wow. Okay. So I'll make sure that we add that as a resource to our call today. So we'll put that in also our show notes, but also our page that we have dedicated to our discussion today. So Dr. RJ, what is one chiropractic resource, just one chiropractic resource that you would recommend the people listening to right now, docs listening, what should they go and find and consume?
I only can give you one. That's not fair.
Yeah, just one.
Okay. I'm going to say, Steve Judson's new book, Tap or Adjust That Atlas or Tap That Atlas. So he came out with 2 books, Wake Up Humans and something about Atlas. I have them both, and I would tell docs to get on. You know, Steve Judson's a dude that's on fire. You mean that guy spits fire? I'd get that book if you're struggling to get that book.
Cool. Okay. Now, last resource I'm going to ask you for is there anything that, like, is there any podcast that you listen to that you would recommend docs listen to?
Yeah, there's there's a trio. Warrior Wealth by Garrett J. White, I would highly recommend, especially for a chiropractor entrepreneur. Date Your Wife by Garrett J. White, I'd recommend. And Warrior Week by Garrett J. White is what I would highly recommend. So those are my 3 outside of, you know, the chiropractic philanthropist. That's probably what I listen to the most. You know, your stuff, and then that's where my heart lies, because again, I want that building of me. I want that character build. I want to learn from guys that have grown businesses, like failed, and then grown empires.
Yeah. And
that's what Garrett can do for you and make it relevant, real, and raw.
Yeah. And that's regardless of whether you're male or female, entrepreneur or chiropractor, or which you are actually an entrepreneur and a chiropractor. I mean, Garrett's stuff is relevant to everyone. Yeah, Warriors changed my life, changed my wife's life, changed my kid's life. You know, it really has. And then, you know, almost as that ripple effect, isn't it? That it's changed like a lot, but from what I've learned, I've been able to help a lot of other people too. So I know that it's been the same for you. So one of the things I like to do on TCP, and we've kind of changed up the format clearly, is, you know, we're having this rich conversation. So, you know, relationships, income, contribution, and health. And the discussion today has been a lot around contribution, about giving back, about how giving and contributing actually has a way of actually capital flowing, but something coming back, the emotional ROI comes back to you. I want to thank you so much for the interview today, RJ. I was really interested to get you on the podcast today too, just because I've seen such a transformation in you in the last year, 2 years, from where you were to where you are today. And I know that, in the future, probably even 6 months from now, there's going to be some massive changes in both your life and business. But I want to thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast today. Listeners, if you head to thechiropracticphilanthropist.com, we'll have a webpage dedicated to our discussion with Dr. RJ today. We're going to have links to all of the resources, the audios, the podcasts, the books that he's dropped here. If you're on your mobile, open up your mobile. They'll be in the show notes right now. You can click and actually check them out right now. RJ, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Ed, it's always a pleasure, man. I appreciate what you're doing for chiropractic. I appreciate what you're doing for men. I appreciate what you're doing for the world, man, using your voice and putting content out for all of us to grow from and learn. And, I really, truly appreciate you. And I'm humbled that you asked me to be back. And just before I go, I just want to say thank you for the kick in the nuts about the marketing on Saturdays. I was like, oh, he's going to talk about screening. I do that all the time. Like, if you just market, I'm like, stop, my balls hurt. So I appreciate for the kick in the nuts. Now I have something to work on next Saturday.
Beautiful. Awesome. Well, anytime you need a kick in the nuts, just message me and I'll be glad to provide, just like I get from all the other guys in Warrior, half of the guys like the coaches there. So
yeah, I'll be reaching out, man. I totally appreciate you, and I love what you're doing, and I love you, dude, and I wish you nothing but the best, man.
All right. Peace out. Thank you so much for giving back today.
All right. Blessings, bro.
So you've heard the struggles, you've heard the successes, and this episode is done. But there's still so much more to come and so much more to learn. Head on over to thechiropracticphilanthropist.com and sign up for our newsletter, where you'll receive free practice building tips and strategies, including how to market your practice with your very own podcast and so much more. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on The Chiropractic Philanthropist.